You're listening to Your Calm Parenting Path. I'm your host Nina, a mindful parenting coach and mum, here to help you go from overwhelmed and reactive to calm, confident and connected with your kids. This show is for parents who want to raise their children with more patience, less stress and a whole lot more joy. Because small shifts make a big impact and you can build the parenting life you've always wanted. If you want to see what I'm up to, follow me on Instagram at Mindful Parenting Lifestyle, and don't forget to hit follow or subscribe so you never miss an episode. Let's get started. Hello, lovely listener, and welcome back. Today I invite you to picture a few moments to see if any of these feel familiar. You're in the shops with your child. They've spotted something on the shelf that they want. You say no, and it is a full meltdown on the floor right there in the aisle. Your face goes hot, and there's a flicker of dread about what everybody nearby is thinking of you as a parent. Perhaps it's morning. The clock is speeding up the second you need it to slow down, and your child is refusing to get dressed again. There's a tightness building in your chest because you already know how the next 10 minutes are going to unfold. Or perhaps you're at the playground. It's time to go, and what starts as a small protest turns into a full meltdown, and somewhere under the frustration is a little bit of guilt too, because you're the one who has to end all the fun for your child. You know what you're supposed to do in these moments. You've read the book. Perhaps you've listened to this podcast, and you know that calm is possible. But right there on the floor of the shops or standing at the school gate with your patience running thin, none of it is much use to you unless you've got something you can actually reach for while it's happening. And that's what today's episode is about. It's not what to do before the moment and not what to do after it. It's all about what to do while you're in it. So buckle up. Now, a lot of what we talk about in mindful parenting sits either side of the difficult moment. Building a daily practice of mindfulness so that you've got more capacity to draw on. Reflecting afterwards so you can repair and learn. Both of these matter, and we'll come back to the why in a bit. But there's a gap in the middle a lot of us feel completely unequipped for. The 9 minutes before you need to leave the house. The meltdown in the shopping aisle. And the third time you've asked and nothing has changed. So, let's start with the shops. Your child wants the toy. You've said no. And now they're on the floor. And with people nearby, it can feel even more personal. Like everyone's watching to see how you'll handle it. I think we have all been there. But underneath the noise, this usually isn't really about the toy. It's disappointment. And at a young age, children don't have the words or the regulation skills to handle disappointment the way we can. So it comes out as their whole body. That's really the foundation everything else in this episode sits on. Almost always, when a child is stalling, refusing or falling apart, something else is going on underneath. Could be tiredness, overwhelm, needing connection, not having the words for what they actually want. We won't always work out exactly what it is in the moment, and you don't need to. You just need that small shift in how you're reading the situation because it changes how you show up in the next 60 seconds and it takes some of the weight off the part of you that's worried about being watched. So, the first tool I want to share with you for this example, and it's probably one you already know, and that is the breath. It sounds almost too simple to say out loud, but there's real reasoning behind it. That racing heart you feel, the tight shoulders, the heat rising in your chest, that's your body gearing up to react. A slow breath in and a slower one out works directly on that. It brings your heart rate down a notch. It gives your shoulders somewhere to drop to, and it buys you a small gap between what your child is doing and what you do next. In that gap, you get to choose what happens rather than your body running the pattern it already knows. The second tool, still in that shop tantrum scenario, is having a short phrase ready to go. Something you can say in your head or out loud that interrupts the spiral before it builds. For your child, something like, she's having a hard time, not giving me a hard time. For the part of you that's aware of people nearby, a second phrase can help too. Something like, this is normal, every parent has had this moment too. Neither needs to be clever, they just need to be familiar enough that you can reach for them even when you're flustered. Think of it less as magic words and more like a handrail, something to hold on to while the wave passes through. Okay, so you've had your breath, you've got your mantra running, you're feeling a bit calmer. Your child is still on the floor, they still want the toy, and you still need to actually get through the shop. So this is where I come back to something I talked about in episode 8. The phrase, I won't let you X, but you can Y. So with the toy, that might sound like, I won't let you have the toy today, but you can help me choose what we're going to have for dinner. Or, I won't let you have that today, but I'll pop it on your birthday list. You're holding the limit and giving something real to land on, something more than a flat no repeated over and over. Now, look, it won't stop the tears immediately, and that's okay. What staying calm actually gives you is the ability to stay with your child through the meltdown, present and steady, without the moment tipping you over too. The second scenario I wanted to talk about is one that honestly I still need to work on myself. My youngest is 6 years old now, more than capable of getting dressed on his own, and he's done it plenty of times. But most mornings, he'll stand there and he'll tell me he still needs help. And my instinct, if I'm being completely honest, it's a flash of frustration. I've got stuff I need to do. He can do this. Why is he asking again? Oh my gosh. I've had to keep practicing staying curious instead of assuming he's just being difficult, approaching it with what mindfulness teachers call beginner's mind, treating the moment as new rather than assuming I already know why he's doing it. For him, I've noticed that I need help some mornings isn't really about the buttons on his shirt or taking off his pajamas. Some days it's more that he wants a moment of connection before the day gets busy. Some days I think it's more than that as well. I think he misses being little. He's got a big day ahead of him, being a big boy at school, managing everything that comes with that, and asking for help with something as small as getting dressed might be the one place where he still gets to be small for a minute, where someone else takes care of it before he has to be a grown-up. So, how do we manage this with mindfulness? Being at home in these situations does change what's available to you. You're not in a shop aisle with an audience, so you've got a few more options. Sometimes it's stepping into the next room for a breath before you come back. Sometimes it's the opposite, going in close for a cuddle first, letting the connection happen before you ask for anything else. My kids love what we call the waterfall breath, breathing in through your nose, lifting your hands above your head, and then shing them down while you breathe out. It's a nice one to do together rather than alone. And sometimes the most useful thing is saying it out loud, right where your child can hear you. I'm feeling frustrated, I'm going to take a breath. You're narrating your own regulation, which means they get to watch you do it rather than just hear about it later. And that kind of modelling tends to land more than any explanation would. So once I've had my breath, or once you've had your breath and you've got curious about why they need help getting dressed. So in this example, I'm reading it as connection that he needs rather than stalling. The practical next step gets easier too. So instead of a flat, no, just do it yourself, you could say, I'll do the buttons, you put your socks on. Or let's do one arm each. It's a small trade, connection for a bit of the independence I know he's got. And most mornings, that's enough to get us moving without either of us digging in. Some days he still wants more help than that. And on those days, I just give it because the getting dressed part was never really the point. Another one I use a lot, and I've talked about a bit on the podcast, is playing dumb, pretending I've completely forgotten how clothes work. Pants going on arms, socks going on hands, and letting him correct me and laugh about it. It turns the whole thing into a game rather than a battle. And that can be enough on its own to get him moving. The final scenario I wanted to talk about in today's episode is the playground. Your child has had the best time playing. They don't want to leave. The protest is building, and reasoning with them about dinner or bath time just isn't landing because from where they're standing, they are having the best time of their day and you're the one that's ending it. So same as the other scenarios, the first thing to do is just to take a breath. Change your energy. You're feeling frustrated. Can you calm yourself down? If you're outside, you might like to ground your feet. Take a moment feeling what's happening around you. The next suggestion I have is to change the energy of the moment. So this works better than trying to reason your way through it. Kids, especially little ones, respond to tone far more than logic. So instead of another round of, come on guys, we need to go now, put your shoes on, try turning it into a race, a silly voice, a countdown. Look, it won't work every time. Nothing does generally. But shifting the vibe can diffuse a standoff faster than almost anything else because it takes you both out of the standoff altogether. There's something in this for you too, not just your child. When you commit to the silly voice or turn it into a race, your own body tends to follow along. Your shoulders drop a little, your breathing eases because you've given your nervous system something playful to do instead of bracing for a fight. Sometimes acting a bit calmer or a bit sillier gets you there faster than waiting around to feel calm first. The practical next step here is mostly about timing. So before you even get to the silly voice, a warning before the ask lands a lot softer than the ask itself. So 2 more minutes, then we go, or 1 more turn on the slide gives them something to finish rather than something that's just being taken away. If the protest still comes, that's when the vibe shift earns its keep. But the warning is what gives them a fair chance to come along without needing it. So we've had 4 tools between the 3 scenarios, and you won't need all of them every time. Some days a breath is enough. Some days it's a mantra, a cuddle, a silly voice, more than once in whatever order works. And that's normal. Here's the part I really want you to hear though. None of these tools work particularly well if the very first time you try them is in the middle of a meltdown. The pause we're talking about, the gap between trigger and response, is a skill. And like any skill, it gets easier with practice. Back in episode 3 of your Calm Parenting Path, which was called Is This the Most Underrated Parenting Tool?, I talked about the power of the pause and a few mindfulness ideas that sit underneath it. Beginner's mind, impermanence, and patience, along with a challenge I called the beginner's pause, which is pausing and asking yourself a fresh question when you feel frustrated. That episode and today's are really 2 halves of the same idea. If you want a proper work through of actually building a daily mindfulness practice so this pause gets easier to reach for, I've also written a blog called How to Start a Mindfulness Practice When You're Already Overwhelmed, and I'll link both of these in the show notes. Every time you sit for a few minutes and notice your mind wander and gently bring it back, you're training the exact muscle you need at the shops, at the wardrobe, or at the playground. Now, I said this episode is about the moment itself, but a quick word on what happens after. Once things have settled, even a minute or 2 later, a short reflection helps. Nothing heavy, just a quiet, what was that about, to yourself? Or maybe, that was a tough moment. Are you okay now, to your child? But that's really a whole episode on its own. I want to share something a client sent me because it's so close to that shopping scenario. She'd had a really hard day with her 4-year-old, a meltdown in a shop, hitting, kicking, the whole thing playing out in public. She messaged me afterwards to say that to her own surprise, she stayed calm through it. She spoke to him gently. She didn't raise her voice. And that's really what today's episode is about, that small gap where you get to choose how you show up, even with people watching. So if you only take one thing from today, your small shift for big impact, make it the breath. Next time you feel that heat rising in the shops, before school, wherever it happens to land for you this week, try one slow breath in and a slower breath out before you do anything else. You don't need the mantra or the silly voice for this to count. The breath on its own is enough to see what a difference one small pause makes to what happens next. If you want this in writing, it's actually all covered in one of my free guides, which is called 5 Little Known Secrets to Help You Keep Your Calm. And there's a printable reminder that you can put on the fridge. I'll pop the link in the show notes, and this is completely free. And if you're using these tools and still finding yourself stuck more often than you'd like, that's exactly the kind of thing we work through together in one-on-one coaching. There's a link to have a discovery call in the show notes too if you ever want to chat. So next time you're in one of these moments on the floor of the shops, before school, or packing up at the playground, see if you can reach for one of these: a breath, a phrase, a moment of connection, or a shift in the vibe. Thank you so much for listening. I'll see you next week, my friend. Thanks for listening to Your Calm Parenting Path. I am so glad you're here. And I hope this episode gave you something useful to take into your parenting journey. If you'd like to dive deeper, sign up to my mailing list at mindfulparentinglifestyle.com.au for more tips and insights, or book a free chat to learn how we can work together. And don't forget to hit follow or subscribe so you never miss an episode. I look forward to speaking with you next time on Your Calm Parenting Path.